what makes you believe in Christianity? Like, why do you have so much faith in it?
You bet. 2 reasons that I believe in Jesus Christ. First of all, because the evidence of the way he lived his life, the content of his teaching, the way he died forgiving his enemies, and the way he rose from the dead points to him being uniquely trustworthy. The second reason I believe in him is because the options are so pathetic.
What do you mean? Like despair?
That's one option. The option of atheism is so pathetic, it's not even close.
Pathetic? Oh.
Why? Because if you take your atheism seriously, then as Albert Camus pointed out, the only question you have to answer is why not commit suicide?
So you believe in it only because it gives you like happiness and fulfillment?
No, I believe in it because it's such an accurate picture of reality as I experience reality.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is, when I talk with human beings across the board, I see an innate drive to understand meaning in life, purpose. I see an innate drive to understand what's right and what's wrong, ethics in life. And I also see an innate drive for life after death. And when I study people like Jean-Paul Sartre, the great atheistic existentialist philosopher, Sartre said, God is silent, and that I cannot deny. Everything within me calls for God, and that I cannot forget. So even though with the top of his head, Sartre crossed off God, his experience of life demanded God.
Is that because you can't find like a suitable answer to like why we're here or where we go when we die, or answers that we can't really answer, or questions that we can't answer?
Well, sir, atheism answers it. Atheism gives you all those answers very clearly.
So
why are you here? For no reason. What's the basis of morality? It's all relative. What happens after death? Nothing. When you talk to the dead and ask them what happens, they say nothing. Nothing happens.
Well, how come Christians like 500 years ago believe that, you know, the earth really was created like in 6 days, or that man was created from clay? And now, like, a lot of Christians don't believe that. They believe like the scientific explanation.
You bet. Because a lot of Christians made the mistake of wedding their particular culturally accepted scientific view with the Bible. But when you go back before those Christians, like back to Augustine, Augustine did not believe the world was created in 6 24-hour periods. Augustine lived in the 300s, was very honest with the text, and realized Genesis 1 is not making a claim that God created in 6 24-hour periods. But what has happened is, often throughout the past 2,000 years, the Christian church has made a horrible mistake, and that is to take whatever scientific view was popular in their time and tie it into the Bible. Well, it's dishonest intellectually.
How do you know who's right, Augustine or the churches?
Just by studying the text for yourself. And when you study Genesis chapter 1, you begin to realize it's comprised of 8 4-line Hebrew poems, which means it's obvious you don't have a stopwatch. The author of Genesis is not answering the question, exactly how long did God take to create? I don't know from the Bible how long God took to create. I turn to science to answer that question. And because of the Big Bang Theory, I believe the universe is about 15 billion years old, our solar system is about 10 billion years old, and planet Earth is about 5 billion years old. Because that's what the latest scientific data points towards.
Okay, so what you're saying is that, what I'm trying to say, my theory,
yes,
is religion is man-made in order for us to not have to have despair, or not have to live in such a life where we have no meaning. It answers questions that we can't necessarily answer, like when we go, where do we go when we die? We go to heaven. I mean, that gives us hope. That fulfills us. But sometimes it answers questions that we couldn't answer back then, like how the earth was created, but now we can answer with science. Because to me, it seems like contradictory. Like, what do you believe that you're going to go to heaven, or do you believe in the scientific explanation of what you do when you die? I mean, it's just decomposed. So you just said earlier that you believe scientifically how the earth is created. But do you believe now that when you die, the scientific explanation is you just decompose and you don't go to heaven?
Do you honestly think that the question, is there life after death, is a scientific question?
Yeah, no. There's obviously no death. There's no life after death. Is the end of life.
You don't know that.
Science tells me that. Life,
No, it
death.
does not. Science doesn't tell you there's no life after death.
Sure it does.
It does not.
Why not?
Science is a study of observable phenomena.
Yeah, the guy's dead. he's
Science
not living.
doesn't tell you
You can observe that.
what is ethically right and what is ethically wrong.
Nothing to do with ethics. The guy's dead.
Science
he's not
doesn't
living.
answer the question, is there meaning to life?
You're not answering
Those
my
are not
question.
scientific questions. Those are philosophical questions.
Okay, I'm not answering. I'm not asking about that. I'm asking where you go when you die. The guy's dead. Where does he go? He's dead. He's not living.
Well, obviously his body decomposes.
Right.
But obviously, the question is it possible that the supernatural God who created our bodies in the first place can give us a resurrection body and can bring us back to life?
What makes you believe that? There's no. You just use scientific evidence to prove that you believe the Earth was created in a certain way. Why do you believe that with no evidence? That we have a supernatural body?
The evidence is, philosophically,
No,
the evidence is...
scientifically.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't base my life on science, sir.
You just said you believe the Earth was created based scientifically. Now
Yeah.
You're contradicting yourself.
And if you ask me a physical question, I will turn to science. If you ask me a material question, I will turn to science. If
Yeah.
you ask me a philosophical question, I'm not going to turn to
Well,
science.
you're turning my scientific question into a philosophical question. Where does someone go when they die?
I told you their body rots.
Okay. So why create this whole other supernatural, metaphysical thing? If there's no science for that.
Because I am convinced that there is more to reality than just the material. You cannot scientifically show me love. You cannot scientifically
not gonna
show me
get into that.
justice.
Maybe we can't explain that now. Like we couldn't explain how the Earth is created, but perhaps later on, we can explain why we feel certain ways.
All right.
But I'm not going to use
All right, then it's real simple.
some.
Please scientifically prove to me that unless I can scientifically prove something, it's not true.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Please scientifically prove to me that unless I can scientifically prove something, it's not true.
But why would you believe it?
See, I don't believe that. I think you do.
No.
Because you
No,
keep
why would
on
you believe
pressing me.
something-
Come on, man, scientifically show me. Sir, science is a wonderful branch of knowledge, but it's a very limited branch of knowledge.
At least because we don't know everything. It was limited back then, but it's not as limited as it was back then.
That's correct.
So it keeps growing.
It keeps growing.
More. So maybe.
So does every branch of knowledge keeps growing.
Right. So maybe we can start explaining our emotions better, which we can. We can explain right with pheromone. You threw out some words I don't even know, but like pheromones and all that stuff. It does help explain our emotions. Like there is
Yes.
some scientific basis for it.
Yes, it helps explain our
Maybe we
emotions.
can't completely explain them now, but perhaps in the future we can. But instead, you choose, to believe in the Bible or whatever religious book, the Bible obviously, to explain certain things that you can't explain with science. Is that what you're saying?
No.
No?
So just think about this statement.
Yeah.
Please scientifically prove to me that unless you can scientifically prove something, it's not true. You can't
In my
do
head,
that. You cannot prove to me scientifically that unless you can prove something scientifically, it's not true. You can't do that. You
I
are
don't understand what you're
limiting
saying.
knowledge.
I really don't.
You're limiting knowledge to scientific knowledge. That's a mistake.
Okay.
It doesn't work in life. You can't go on a scientific date. You can't base your family life on science.
There are biological rules there's a reason why I'm attracted to a certain person. There's a biological basis for that.
Please don't depend upon science to build a marriage and a family, sir. It won't work.
Okay, I'm not saying that.
It'll be a horrible family.
I happen to live in a good family.
Good. Then if you do, be open-minded enough to acknowledge that it's not based on science.
A lot of it is.
Fine, a lot of it is. But there's a ton of it that's not.
Maybe we can't explain it with science now, but perhaps maybe in the future we can. I don't claim to say.
Maybe they're unicorns. You're playing a game.
I'm not
You are
playing.
playing.
You're
Yes, you
playing a game.
are.
Talking unicorns.
You've got to acknowledge that there's so much more to your life than scientific knowledge. There is so much more to your good family than scientific knowledge. It's incredible.
I would like to I think that life is as significant as we make it to be, and that it saddens me that people need a reward such as a pleasant afterlife in order to do what they think is right, what will benefit society as a whole in long term. So my question for you though is, you seem to be content with God working in mysterious ways, and I want to know, why aren't you comfortable in seeing the mystery in the natural world?
I have to live with mystery in the natural world every day. There's no way that science answers every natural question of matter and energy. My brother's a research scientist. He's deeply committed to Christ. He works in transplanting kidneys and livers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He's working with the mysteries of nature all the time, trying to help bodies not reject the new liver or the new kidney that he transplants into them. So obviously we have to live with the mysteries of nature, the unknowns of science. And in the same way that we have to live with that, we also have to live with the mysteries of God and unknowns of God.
Right. So I think if you truly took comfort in living with the mysteries of the natural world, you wouldn't run to a supernatural to explain the unexplainable in the natural world. As I think, so I think it's the fear of the unknown that you have as to why you take comfort in God with a afterlife planned out for you. Depending on what you're doing now.
Is it possible that you have a phobia of fear? I think there's a healthy type of fear.
No,
I'm afraid of having HIV.
No,
I'm afraid of playing around in traffic on the interstate. I'm afraid of flunking out if I don't study. I think there's a healthy kind of fear as well as a destructive kind of fear. I try and stay away from destructive fear, but healthy fear helps motivate me to make sure that I don't have promiscuous sex. Healthy fear helps me make sure that I drive carefully and I don't hit a Mack truck.
Okay, so what a healthy fear is fearing fear itself, because in other words, we are our own enemies, as I forgot who said that, but the point is,
yes, President Roosevelt.
You want to fear itself, because under the operation of fear, you're not going to act in the most rational, the best ways, and I just think that you're talking about how atheists have comfort in that they're not going to be regulated or punished by some God. I'm saying that you're the one who is taking comfort in some kind of plan that's been set up for you, so that you don't have to worry about the afterlife. And I think atheists don't worry about afterlife because there is none.
Exactly.
But in the same way, you don't worry about the afterlife because you feel it's been taking care of you because you're doing.
Fine, so we don't worry about the afterlife, okay?
Right.
All my point is, if what you say is true, that when we all die, we all rot, that means what we do with our lives is ultimately insignificant. Mother Teresa and Adolf Hitler are rotting. Case closed, according to your worldview. According to my worldview, Adolf Hitler will be judged by a just God for the atrocities of Dachau, Auschwitz, and Buchenwald, and Mother Teresa, because of her humble faith in Christ, will enjoy eternal life in heaven. In other words, the worldview that Jesus Christ puts forth is a worldview that says evil will ultimately lose, Hitler ultimately loses. Those who humble themselves before God and put their faith in Christ spend eternity in heaven.
The difference is that you're letting God plan out what is significant for you versus someone who doesn't believe in God. They determine themselves what is significant for them.
But they have to acknowledge that because there is no God, what they determine as being significant is ultimately insignificant. It's just their own personal bias that informs them that this is significant. If there is no God, did Hitler do anything absolutely wrong?
There is, because as a whole society, we have made things that we know is right and wrong. We have these laws, and actually, we consider Hitler as being wrong because he unjustly killed millions of people.
So what?
So what I'm saying is, as a whole, we need to come together as a whole world, and we need to say, where do we want to go? Right now, we're going to, the world's destruction, because uncarelessly we're consuming resources and multiplying the numbers like crazy. So the point is that we need to come together and make our own destiny and have our own plan for future generations, for our progeny, because there's no gratification in just believing of a fictional character with a fictional story.
Yeah, but if that's reality, then face reality.
Is our progeny. That's the only thing we can look to for the future, because we're not going to be here, and we're not going to know what's going on, even if there is a heaven.
Well, I sure like the honesty of Woody Allen. Woody Allen once said, "Who cares about achieving immortality through one's achievements? I'm interested in achieving immortality through not dying." Woody Allen said, "Who cares about living on in the minds of my fans? I'm interested in living on in my apartment." Thank you, Woody. I find that kind of honesty refreshing.
So I'm just saying, as much as you take comfort in God, what I'm saying is you're not setting up your own plan for yourself, and you're following something that has no proof or evidence. Just letting you know that. So as much as significant you think life is in your terms, anyone, it's relative. Anyone can make up their own significance, and your significant life, or what brings you joy, is no more joyous or significant than what an atheist can achieve.
And just remember that if what you say is true, the opposite is equally true. If you take your atheism seriously.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Just live that out.
Right.
Whatever I believe as an atheist, the opposite is equally valid. Try and make sense of that.
So what I'm saying is there's no difference in believing in something versus not believing, but what the advantage that atheists have is that they do not believe fictional things.
Yes.
They look.
Atheists do believe fictional things. Atheists believe it's absolutely wrong for me to murder him. That's fiction. If there is no God, it is not absolutely wrong for me to murder him. The only way it could be absolutely wrong for me to murder him is if there is some God outside of him and me who defines justice, and the murder of him is unjust. Otherwise, it's all relative. I just make it up as I go, you make it up as you go. And that's why I'm so concerned for the intellectual dishonesty of so many atheists. A few atheists that I have met, like one who came out here yesterday, said, "You're right, Cliff. Life is meaningless. It doesn't matter what I do with my life, and death is definitely the end. I'm an atheistic existentialist." And I said, "Gosh, it sure is good to meet you." All these other atheist colleagues of yours here at UT are insisting that, "Oh, no. Culture defines a moral absolute." Baloney. Culture doesn't define a moral absolute. Nazi Germany defined morality one way. White South African society defined morality another way. America at the time of the Dred Scott decision defined morality another way. It's all relative. It simply depends upon which society you're interacting with at a time. My worldview says, no, it is absolutely wrong to murder him. Why? Because he's not an accident. He's a human being created by God for a purpose, with meaning, with significance. And it is absolutely evil and unjust for me to murder him. That's why I can live that out. That's why I can say that Nazis were absolutely wrong in gassing Jews in Dachau and Auschwitz. You, my atheist friend, cannot say that. You have to say, from my perspective, culturally, my culture doesn't approve of that type of behavior, but obviously no Nazi culture approved of that behavior. My culture is not superior to Nazi culture. My culture has its opinion. Nazi culture has its opinion. It's all relative. And when you think about that and let that settle in deep into your soul, you begin to realize the despair, the hollowness, the meaninglessness of life.
Well, it's all relative up to a point until the society starts destroying the world, because we all
baloney.
live in the same world.
Total baloney, and you know it if you go back home and think about what you just said.
And
it's all relative until we start destroying the world. Then my absolute opinion kicks into gear, and I inform the world population that what you're doing is absolutely wrong. Are you kidding me?
Now, what I'm saying is until you affect someone else in a negative way. But what you're talking about in the whole justice thing is that people are the ones who define justice, and there are universal truths out there. If you
see why you can't live out your atheism? You see why your atheism doesn't work? You just proved it magnificently. I can't thank you enough. It's all relative until we all start destroying each other. Then when we all start destroying each other, then all of a sudden absolutes kick in. Where do these absolutes come from? Oh, it comes from my brain. Come on, man, think.
Moral atheist.
Oh, yeah, buddy, come on. Wake up and smell the coffee, man. You guys just don't want to face the logical conclusions of your belief. Now face it. Stop wimping out. You are wimping out.
Okay, well, I don't believe in finding logic in the supernatural, but what you said, what you're labeling me as an atheist, and I never told you that I was.
I'm sorry, I thought you said you were an atheist. I thought you were arguing for atheism. I apologize if I'm misunderstood you.
Right, so I think people, I consider myself agnostic.
That's just an agnostic is an atheist without guts.
And I believe, a Christian is someone who cannot accept the natural world as all there is. That they have to, pad themselves with this afterlife being so pleasant, a pleasant life.
So you can't live the life of an agnostic. Agnosticism is an intellectual option. It's a practical impossibility. You have to make ethical decisions every day. The ethical decisions you make every day tattle what you believe about reality. You can stand here and say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But the way you cheat or don't cheat, the way you lie or tell the truth, the way you forgive or seek revenge, the way you're either racist or respecting all people, shows an ethical system. It shows a worldview. It shows that you do think. So you can't be agnostic. You can't live out agnosticism. What are you going to say? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. I don't know if I should rape her or not. I really don't know. Well, the decision you make shows what you believe.
You live out agnosticism by not assuming anything.
You can't live by not assuming anything. Do you pay the cashier for the goods you pick up in the store or not?
So
Do you cheat on the exam or do you not cheat on the exam? Do you tell a racist joke or do you hate racist jokes? Well, the decisions that you make, the way you live your life, shows you're not agnostic. You have to make ethical decisions. You have to. You have no choice. Now, you can sit back and say, well, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, but you're going to have to live your life. And the way you live your life shows what you believe about reality. You're going to tell a racist joke or not?
I'm not.
Good, bravo. Why not? Why?
Because that's not what I'm here for. But basically, all I'm saying is, as much evidence as you have to prove that there is God, you can use that same evidence to prove that there's not a God.
No, you can't.
There's no more evidence for one side.
I thought you weren't an atheist. You're an agnostic, right?
Agnostic, right? So what I'm just doing, so all I'm doing is not taking a side. That's all. And that is not a bad thing.
Thanks for your time.
I just wanted to reply to a couple of your comments. I think you're making really linear arguments and saying that just because you don't believe that there's a God, that everything goes. I mean, personally, I'm an atheist, and I do have joy. I find joy in the things that I do, the things that I do for other human beings. And the reason that I wouldn't condone rape or violence is because I respect myself. And it comes down to respecting other human beings, not because they were created by a supernatural God, but just because that is how you find true joy. You can't find true joy without respecting yourself and other people. And I don't think that life is meaningless just because God didn't create me. I make my own meaning in my life. So.
All right. So, ma'am, you're just like all of my atheist friends. Altruists, idealists, you respect people, you seek to live a decent life, honoring people. That's wonderful. All I ask you to do is to realize that if I choose to respect him, that's cool. But if I choose to disrespect him, that's equally as cool.
No, well, it may be for you.
But for an atheist.
You're generalizing every atheist to be the same way, and...
No, I'm not. I'm not making a personal judgment call. I'm just following the line of thinking of Bertrand Russell, Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre, Friedrich Nietzsche. That's all I'm doing. Pointing out that if there is no mind prior to the human mind, then morality is relative. Which means, if I'm an atheist, I create my own morality, which is respect the man. But if I choose to create my own morality, which is disrespect the man, that is not wrong in any ultimate sense, because I create morality. If I choose to respect this woman, as an atheist. Wonderful. And all of my atheist friends do respect the woman, okay? But intellectually, what you've got to realize is, if there is no God, there's no mind prior to the human mind who defines what's right and what's wrong. And if I choose to be disrespectful to the woman, that's equally valid.
No, because your rights end where they violate other people.
According to who?
According to any reasonable thinking human being.
Oh. According to any reasonable human being.
I mean,
Like the Supreme Court justices who passed the Dred Scott decision?
you might say
Like white South Africans?
Like Falcon Hobbs.
You might say that things are only absolutely wrong if God says they're wrong, but that's, I mean, I'm sorry that you believe that. I'm saying that not everybody needs a God to tell them what's right and what's wrong.
Ma'am, I didn't make this up. This was thought about long before me. All you've got to do is read Bertrand Russell, Camus, Sartre, Nietzsche, all the great atheistic philosophers. Intellectually, reasonably, logically, if there is no God, there is no mind prior to the human mind. Do you think, if there is no mind, that there is a value of respect? Do you think if there is no thinking mind, there is a value of goodness? Do you think if there is no conscious mind, there is a value of compassion?
Yes.
No. How? Do you think this inanimate matter understands justice and compassion?
No, but those are two different questions.
No, it's not. It's all right down the same line, man.
No.
It takes a mind, a conscious thinking mind, to create, to understand justice and compassion. Inanimate matter could give a rip about justice and compassion. Inanimate matter has no ability to understand justice and compassion. It takes a sentient, thinking being to define justice, respect, compassion. Now, does everybody understand that? Am I wrong?
But that's why I respect human life. Not because God created it.
Fine.
It's something special.
Fine, according to your mind. But if his mind tells him that this guy is really an accidental collection of atoms, therefore to steal his money is fine, he's not wrong in any ultimate sense.
That's like a ridiculous argument. Just because life was created accidentally doesn't mean that there are no rules for living in a peaceful society.
Ma'am, if there is no God, life was not created. If there is no God, life happened by accident.
Right, but that doesn't mean that anything goes and that you can...
Of course it does.
Maybe.
If there is no God who defines why a human life is valuable, then anything goes that I think up, that you think up. Anything goes. And that was Camus' point, and Sartre's point, and Bertrand Russell's point, and Friedrich Nietzsche's point. And they are coldly logical, coldly rational.
Yeah, so you have to make your own meaning, and that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Life is absurd, and so you find meaning in yourself, and that's why you don't infringe on other people.
Wonderful. I'm glad you decided that, ma'am. But if life is meaningless,
Life is
then the
meaningless.
opposite of what you have defined as meaningful is equally valid. If you say it's meaningful to respect him, that's your creation. And if I say, man, that's wonderful. My creation is, he's an idiot, I'm going to steal his money. That's just as legitimate as your creation of meaning. Just because I'm different from you gives you no right to tell me that I'm wrong. You create your own meaning, I create my own meaning. You're not going to be telling me that I'm wrong. I better not be telling you you're wrong. It's all relative. And so if the Nazi wants to gas Jews, that's the Nazi's right. That's his opinion. That's his definition of meaning. And if the white South African wants to oppress black people in apartheid, I disagree with it. But if I'm an atheist, I have to acknowledge the white South African is just as right as I am, because we all create our own meaning. So if you're a Nazi, create your own meaning. If you're a white South African, you create your own meaning. If you're Mother Teresa, you create your own meaning. No one's right, no one's wrong. It's all relative.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just ridiculous.
Oh, come on, you do know. That's got to be true, man. Come on, think. And that's why I respect the atheist Bertrand Russell and Camus and Sartre and Nietzsche. They nailed it all over the head, pointing out the absurdity of life. Because we all create our own meaning. The rapist creates his own meaning. He's right for himself. Mother Teresa's right for herself. It's all relative. You see, you can't live that out, can you? Which means you better go back and ask yourself, Is my belief in touch with reality? If I believe something and it doesn't work in life, it doesn't explain life accurately, then I better go back and question whether my belief is really accurate or not.
I may have misheard you, I don't know. But you said something like that the Bible says that there will be people in heaven that have never heard of Christ.
Absolutely correct.
It's it.
Hebrews chapter 11 in the New Testament gives a partial list of people who will be in heaven who never had the opportunity to hear about Christ. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Rahab, a Gentile prostitute, obviously never heard about Jesus. They were born hundreds of years before him.
Right.
But in humility, they put their faith in God and they'll be in heaven. But Jesus and the Bible do insist the only reason they will be in heaven is because Jesus bled and died on a cross for their sin. They're not going to be in heaven because they were good boys and good girls. They were all sinners, the same way I'm a sinner. But they, in humility, trusted God.
So that's kind of confusing. I just they lived way before Christ. So what happened to them until Christ came around?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
I mean, he says, "No man cometh unto the Father but by me."
Uh-huh.
You're claiming that they came to the Father by him somehow. I mean, is that
Right.
like? So what happened to them while they were waiting or whatever?
Well, while they were alive, they never heard about Jesus,
I mean,
right?
after they died.
But God's Spirit, God's Holy Spirit, draws all people to himself. And Abraham and Moses and Rahab chose to respond to God's Spirit drawing them. Now, God applies the death of his son Jesus to their lives. But they never heard about Jesus, so they didn't understand that. But in humility, they're saying, God, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I'm trusting you to get me to heaven. They put their faith in God, humble faith.
Okay.
Now, when they died, what happened? Well, my understanding is the same thing happened to them that happened to us. When I die as a follower of Christ, my body goes into the ground and rots.
Late for work, I gotta go.
But my soul, my personality goes into the presence of God. And then when Christ returns a second time, my body will be resurrected, reunited with my soul, and I'll spend eternity with Christ in heaven, along with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Rahab, a Gentile prostitute.
So what about, does that apply to people after Christ that haven't heard about him?
Well, that's the difficult question.
Right.
And that's my point in my conversation with him, which
Right.
was, I do not know specifically how God will judge those who've never heard about Christ, because Christ never specifically addressed the issue. That's why I can't.
But didn't he say that no man cometh unto the Father but by me? Isn't that
He sure did.
kind of?
Yeah, but obviously he knew that Moses and Abraham were going to be in heaven. And
But
obviously,
that's because they didn't have the Jesus to turn to while they were alive. I'm talking about people that just because of where they're positioned geographically or whatever, that they never heard about Christ.
right. And you see, the point is, Jesus in the Bible never specifically addressed your question, so it'd be a little intellectually dishonest of me to add to the Bible and say, well, here it is, here's what it says. It doesn't say.
Well, I think he does when he says, no man cometh unto the Father but by me. Doesn't that address that issue?
Well, yeah, Moses is going to be in heaven because Jesus died on a cross.
I'm not talking about Moses, I'm talking about the guys after.
Yeah, but Moses is like your buds who lived AD but never heard about Jesus. Moses never heard about Jesus. But in humility, he put his faith in God. God applies the death of his son Jesus to Moses' life, and Moses will be in heaven. Is it not possible that the same thing is true for someone who lives after Christ, never heard about Jesus, but in humility responds to all the light that God gives them? God applies the death of his son Jesus to their lives, and they'll be in heaven. Is that not possible?
Well, the conclusion I come to is, he said, no man cometh unto the Father but by me. Therefore, if you're living and you haven't heard about Christ, you're not going to go to heaven because you're not accepting Christ because you haven't heard about him.
Well, then why would Moses be going to heaven?
Well, that's different. He put his faith in God.
Yeah.
What about people that didn't even hear about God? They believed in Buddha or whoever.
Well, anthropology shows us that every culture has some type of belief in God. We as human beings have what Blaise Pascal called a God-shaped vacuum at the center of our being. No human being is going to be able to say, God, you didn't give me enough evidence. From creation, from conscience, from our innate drive to know God, God has left more than enough evidence for any one of us to be a theist.
Where does Cain's wife come from?
Where does Cain's wife come from?
Yeah, did God just happen to throw another person for Cain to marry? It just doesn't say anything about it in the Bible. It just kind of appears.
All right, what difference in your life today is it going to make whether I can answer your question where Cain's wife came
It
from?
shows that the Bible is not 100% true. Why aren't the dinosaurs mentioned in the Bible?
Okay, that's the same line of thinking. Keep it on. Man, there's no book anywhere in the world that gives us every detail. There's no history book of U.S. history that gives us every detail of U.S. history. There's no biology textbook that gives you every detail of biology. But you have the arrogance to sit there and say, because the Bible doesn't answer the question where Cain got his wife from, it shows the Bible's unreliable. That is so dishonest intellectually, that's scary. And yet that type of thinking is tolerated on a university campus. That's embarrassing, man.
The Bible is just a book to read.
Embarrassing.
The Bible is literature. It's a book of history.
Yeah, and there's no book that includes every detail of the particular issue the book is dealing with. For you to have the audacity to sit there and say, the Bible's incorrect because it doesn't tell me where Cain got his wife, is such convoluted, illogical, irrational thinking. It's embarrassing, man. It really is.
Which Bible do you use?
Now, what are some possible explanations for where Cain got his wife? Well, it's obvious that possibly Cain married one of his sisters.
Can you explain why a dinosaur bone?
Let me give you a second explanation. The Bible never says that God created only Adam and Eve. It's possible that God created other human life as well. And so Cain would have married a daughter of somebody else. Those are two options. I don't know which one's right, but guess what? It really doesn't matter a hill of beans to your life today where Cain got his wife.
Neither does
Stop
Jesus
playing
Christ.
games. Oh no, if Jesus spoke the truth, what he said is highly relevant to your life today and to my life. Yes, it is.
I can do anything in my life, and God does not play any role in it. I have my own decisions, I mean, if I decide to, if I decide to go out and shoot someone, I'm gonna go out and decide to shoot someone. God doesn't tell me to shoot someone. I'm coming to school here. Does God?
Yeah, that's right. And if you go out and murder people, on the day of judgment, God's gonna hold you responsible for that, for murdering people. You're right, you're free today. God's giving you a free will, and you can go out and blow people away. And you might even evade the police if you're tricky enough and smart enough. But there's coming a day of judgment, and you will stand before an all-knowing, all-powerful God, and he will hold you responsible for blowing people away. So don't tell me Jesus isn't relevant. Because if he did speak the truth, you better watch out, because you'll answer to God for blowing people away, even if you get away with it in this life. But where Cain got his wife? No, sir. That has no relevance to your life at all.
Which book should we use?
What about the dinosaurs?
What about the dinosaurs? Well, why doesn't every U.S. history book at the University of Washington tell us where Abraham Lincoln slept every night of his life? Don't you see what you're doing, sir? History is a selective account of what happened. And just because the Bible doesn't talk about dinosaurs is not the Bible saying there never were dinosaurs.
They're a pretty big event in the history of our...
Oh, really? Of what relevance to your life today are dinosaurs?
No, not to my life today, but it's important to how everything evolved on.
Oh, is it really? Of what significance to human development is a dinosaur?
Gasoline.
Just because the Bible doesn't talk about dinosaurs does not mean there weren't dinosaurs from a biblical perspective. The Bible's about 1,600 pages long. It begins with the creation. It ends with the return of Christ. That's an awful lot of time to cover in 1,600 pages. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of gaps, right? Right. Same way there are gaps in every U.S. history book, in every African history book, in every European history book. In every history book, there are gaps, bud. Come on, man.
I can put my faith in the reliability of the four Gospels and the teachings of Jesus.
Right.
But as a Christian, how do I put my full trust in an author such as Paul, who I know received a revelation from Christ through being blind? But how do I put my faith in and trust in his teachings in Romans, in the Corinthians, that give a lot of instructions for the church today? And an author such as the author of Hebrews, how do I put my full trust in?
You bet. Difficult question. The reason that I accept Paul's writings as authoritative, as reliable, is because the eyewitness community of Jesus accepted his letters as authoritative, as reliable. Paul's letters were some of the first New Testament documents written.
1 Corinthians, written in early 50s AD. Thessalonians, written shortly thereafter. And the eyewitness community accepted Paul's writings as authentic, as reliable testimony about Jesus. That's why I accept it. But you're right. Obviously, Jesus never saw them. They were written after Jesus. Thanks. Pardon?
That's a distinction without a difference. That's just a rhetorical move. I mean, if you're making the same claim that Jesus Christ made, then you're both claiming that you're making the same truth claim. So then the question is, how do you propose to validate that truth claim?
All right, the way I propose to validate that claim is to plead with you to read the source documents, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, simply as historical narrative, and ask yourself, as you read the Gospels, does the historical evidence of the way he treated people, what he taught ethically, how he died, how he rose from the dead, point to him being a quack, or does it point to him being reliable? And you decide for yourself. Obviously, guys, I am convinced that Jesus is reliable. I don't think I need to state that baldly for you. I think you should be able to understand that, just by the way I've answered your question. But I'm not telling you, believe in Jesus because I do. I'm not standing out here saying, believe in Jesus because I've had this neat experience with him. No, I'm telling you, please go and read the Gospels for yourself, the source documents. Ask yourself, does the evidence point to Christ being reliable or does it not?
Point that out exactly what you mean, but Christ being reliable.
Christ claimed to be revealing God accurately. Christ claimed to be revealing the purpose of life accurately. Christ claimed to be revealing the way to heaven accurately. The big question is he reliable or not?
One of those claims that just can't be validated in this life. I mean, if you want to say that Christ is the way to heaven, how exactly do you propose that someone validate that?
The same way you validate anybody. You look at how they live, you look at what they teach, you look at how they die, and you find out, did anything happen after they died? I can promise you, if this guy tells me something, gives me information, makes some truth claims, and I follow him around, and I see that he lives this incredibly fine life, I'll take him more seriously. If he goes around and lives a hypocritical life, I'm going to dismiss him pretty quickly.
When you say the way to heaven, you are talking about an actual afterlife. Are you
Right.
not? Okay, now if you say there's a dog in that building, I know how to validate that. I go walking to the building and I see if there's a dog, and I say, yes, there's a dog there. When you say that Christ is the way to heaven, how do you propose that I validate that?
Well, I was answering that. It begins by examining what he taught ethically and how he lived. Was there a consistency there, or was there a bunch of hypocrisy there? Well, you begin to see there was a tremendous consistency that demands respect, so we continue to investigate further. Christ said, I'm going to die and rise from the dead. If he pulls that off, that's a tremendous evidence that he's credible.
Then why didn't you say that Christ is the way to enlightenment? You said Christ is the way to heaven. You said that means...
That was his claim.
How do you propose that one validate that claim?
Well, Christ made the mistake of giving us a way to validate it. He said, I'm going to die and rise from the dead. That's quite a claim. Somebody pulls that off, that gives them a great deal of credibility, doesn't it? The same way you validate anything historically. You look for historical evidence to find out, did he really die? Did he really rise from the dead? Or did he not?
And outside of the Christian sources, there are no external references. So I have an MDiv. I'm not just shooting off the mouth, okay? There are no extra Christian sources that refer to a person rising from the dead.
And outside the Quran, we do not have the teachings of Muhammad. And outside the teachings of the Buddha, we don't have the teachings of the Buddha. And outside the Vedas and Upanishads, we don't have the Vedas and Upanishads. So what? To have this incredible assumption that a person who trusts Muhammad cannot give me accurate information about Muhammad is bogus. The evidence is the Quran is a very reliable document. It gives us exactly what Muhammad taught and how he lived. And the evidence is the Gospels give us a very accurate picture of how Jesus lived and what he taught.